All right, hello, rockers and rollers and metal maniacs. It's the Meista from Brews and Tunes. Cheers. Absolutely thrilled today. I'm beside myself with excitement, actually. I am chatting with legendary rock and roller, the one and only, the illustrious Mr. Steve Plunkett, of course, of the legendary Autograph and solo career. Works in the music industry for so many years, doing production, songwriting, GM for multiple music companies. Mr. Plunkett, so nice to chat with you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Victor. Good to talk to you, man.
Yeah. I'm very excited to talk with you, especially because after all these years, you have a brand new solo album coming out July 19th through Cleopatra Records.
Yes, I do. I'm looking forward to it.
Yes. Straight Up is the name of the album, and I'm lucky enough to have got a copy of the album already and a copy on CD, and it is, I got to tell you, it's fantastic. It's everything I wanted, and everything I was hoping it would be and more, for sure.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. I mean, it's kind of what you and I were talking before the interview. I mean, it harkens back to the old Autograph sound, your solo work from, My Attitude, but then it's very fresh, and it just rocks. I mean, it's like that old, feel good, early 80s rock and metal. I mean, it just, I've been enthralled since it showed up in the mail. I've listened to it, I don't even know how many, countless times now.
Awesome. Well, that's kind of what I was going for. That's kind of the purpose of this record is I wanted to go back to kind of basic rock, what I used to do in the old days, less production, more just guitars, bass, drums, and vocals, and not try to be too clever with it, but just make it rock.
Nice. Yeah, and I think you definitely have accomplished that for sure. From the get-go, the single, Rock Machine, was released a couple weeks ago, I believe, and which is available now. People can listen to that on YouTube and I believe on streaming services. And yeah, I think as soon as they hear it, they're gonna. It's exactly what you described. I mean, it's just pure rock and roll. It really is. It's great. And yeah, like I said, it just kind of took me right back. To those early days. I mean, it's exactly what I needed. I think in these trying times, it's perfect for perfect music for what's going on right now.
Awesome. Well, I was, I've had a long career as a songwriter, writing songs for many projects that are not necessarily my projects. Tailoring music, and I just wanted to focus on something that I really wanted, I had no preset plan really other than kind of have fun with it. I didn't want any ballads. I just wanted everything up tempo, pushing. And I was, as I was playing with this, I was remembering some of the stuff I used to play back in the day, even before Autograph. I was in a band on the Sunset Strip, and it was an original band, but every now and then we'd throw in some cuts from the Ramones. Just in your face, up tempo, eighth note guitar stuff, and I kind of harkened back to that a little bit.
Nice. Yeah, that's great. I love it. Yeah, now I have to ask. As far as the music, did you play all the instruments, or did you hire a band to as far as drums and bass?
Unfortunately, I played it all.
Okay. Oh, it's great. They were just I didn't see any credits on the CD of other musicians, so I made the assumption that you played all the instruments. I know you're multi-instrumental, so I was assuming that you played everything, but I thought I'd better ask.
Yeah, it was just easier with my schedule, to pop into my studio when I got an idea and just start rocking it.
Nice, very cool. What I guess the curiosity, I mentioned before your first solo album, My Attitude, came out in 1991. So,
right.
fast forward 33 years. What made you decide to do a solo album now?
Now, I wanted to give my attitude a full run. No, I'm joking. I've been just so busy with, doing so much other stuff. I haven't had a minute to breathe, and then kind of during the COVID period, things slowed down, and I was able to focus on myself for the first time in many, many years. And even when I did my attitude, it was a whole different time in music.
Yeah.
Right at kind of the end of the 80s rock thing. And we were branching out into other styles and a little more pop sounding stuff. So fast forward all these years, and all of those stylistic things seem to have gone by the wayside, and you can just kind of do what you want now, and the people that dig it, and the people that don't, and that's fine.
Right. Yeah. That's it's interesting. You're mentioning, right at the end of the 80s, that when you recorded that album, my attitude, and yeah, I mean, you had just split from Autograph. You guys had just broken up. Were some of those songs from My Attitude intended to be Autograph songs, or was this something else? So I know you're a pretty prolific songwriter, so
yeah, a couple of them would have been Autograph songs. You Make Me Bleed, we had actually demoed that with Autograph.
Oh, okay.
My Attitude, I had intended that to be an Autograph song, and probably Dead End Street as well.
Oh, okay.
The other ones were not written with Autograph in mind, but I was kind of still in that mindset at that point.
Yeah, because there's somewhat of a similar sound, of course, and and I mean, it's you, so I mean, you're going to have certain songs that are going to sound like they come from you. However, I mean, as you mentioned, you've written music for a lot of major players over the years. I mean, that's one thing that I've always had a great respect for you for is you've written literally hundreds of songs, many for Autograph, of course, and your solo work, but then, I mean, you've worked with, the likes of the Go-Go's and Vixen and Edgar Winter, and I mean, some huge names. So that's really cool. That's interesting. I would imagine it's, and this is what I kind of wondered too with maybe this helped prompt doing Straight Up. I would imagine as a songwriter, I mean, songs are, and I don't want to put words in your mouth. I would imagine that to some degree they're kind of your babies. Were there ever songs that you struggled to let go of? Basically giving that to it, to the Go-Go or Cyndi Lauper or whomever. Was like, oh God, I should keep this song for myself.
I have to say not really, because after Autograph, I became a staff writer at a music publishing company.
Oh, right.
And I was in the zone of writing for other people, writing for other projects. And so I wasn't thinking of keeping anything for myself. So when I could collaborate with an artist or submit a song for some sort of project, and if it was successful, I was just happy about that. I always thought, if I ever do anything for myself, I can write new stuff.
Right. And then, and I know you've got Plunksongs, your music publishing company. And then, and you mentioned, all the writing. I think that was with All Music, correct? All Music Nation.
All Nations, All Nations Music. I was the staff writer at that company.
Okay, nice. And then you've also done, of course, over the years, you've been a GM for multiple music companies as well. Fender Records and Motor 17 and Yahoo Music.
Yeah.
So I mean, you've been insanely busy for the last 40 years. Since. But I think that's why I was so excited about this album coming out. Is I mean, you've been very active in the music world, for decades, but in a lot of ways, kind of, undercover is maybe that's not the right term, but kind of on the behind the scenes to some degree.
Right.
In terms of music fans seeing it. Apart
exactly. I was I was kind of on the other side of the equation, not. When you're not an artist, if you want to continue, then you go into the other side of it, which is writing, production, management, business management, that kind of stuff. So that's kind of where I focused for all those years.
Right. Yeah. It was. So I mean, yeah, it's great that you're back in the limelight, as it were, with the new album. That's really exciting, because I know it. And it was probably because you were so busy with all of your other things. I know, it was probably, I don't even know what year it was, maybe 2003, 2004, when Autograph got back together for a reunion, and you declined at the time.
Yeah.
And I would imagine it was because you were so busy. Did you have any regrets? Looking back, do you regret that you didn't do that, or were you fine kind of going forward with what your journey was?
Oh, yeah, no regrets. I was so busy at that point. I could barely get my own projects and the stuff I was working on done. The last thing I wanted to do was get in a van and go on the road to, play bars every night. So right. I would have never done that. No, I'm happy I didn't. And, those guys called me up and said, "Do you want to do it?" I said, "Absolutely not." Well, can we do it? I said, "Sure, you guys have my blessing." That was Randy and Steve Lynch. I said, "Go have fun."
Nice. That's great. Yeah, and I mean, and you were just, I mean, so yeah, like you said, you're so busy with everything that you had going on, and I'd be remiss not to mention as well. I mean, you partnered with Spencer Proffer and did over 40 movies and television show soundtracks, and I mean, and probably a lot that people might not be realize that you had written these songs, Gods and Monsters, and Take Rattle and Roll, and of course, Rockstar.
Yeah.
With, and it's funny because I had no idea that you had written Living the Life, for the Steel Dragon band. Soundtrack, and because I enjoyed the movie, so I bought the soundtrack, and I remember that was my favorite song. And then when I looked at the credits, I'm like, holy shit, that's Steve Plunkett.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it has that a little bit of that feel too. I mean, it definitely has it definitely has that 80s vibe to it, which is great.
Yeah, I wrote that song "Living the Life" with my buddy Peter Beckett, who was Peter is lead singer of the group Player, and he wrote the big hit "Baby Come Back." Right. Oh, that's cool. I've done a lot of writing with Peter, and that's one of the songs we wrote.
Nice. Do you still write with him at all, or? Yeah,
occasionally.
Nice. Do you have any? Are you working on any soundtracks currently? Anything going on as far as on that side of the fence?
Not really. I'm working on a project, but I cannot talk about it at this point.
I understand. Well, if you don't mind, I'd like to take a ride in the Wayback Machine, and I'm really curious about your early life as a musician. Did you come from a musical family? Kind of, what was the impetus for you? What started all of this?
Well, my dad played music. He, for fun, he played mandolin and saxophone, and he had several instruments. And, back in the day, he kind of got me going playing mandolin, and then I went from mandolin to guitar, and before you know it, I had my own band. And in I brought my first record out when I was in high school. Then I went to college and brought out a second record, and then I went on the road full-time with a group called Wolfgang.
Nice. And that Randy was in that band, correct?
Randy was in a later version of Wolfgang, yeah, when we were playing the Sunset Strip.
Okay, nice. Wow, that's cool. Now, was this, so the original Wolfgang, were you in California?
No, we were actually in Arizona, and then we went up to Colorado. That's where we kind of honed it, the Wolfgang thing, and eventually we came to LA, and that's where the band started, changing a few members and becoming the group that Randy was in.
Okay, nice. And then you also, if I did my research correctly here, after Wolfgang, you were in a band with Steve Lynch called Looker, correct?
Well, kind of. It was really not a band. We never played a gig. We never did a rehearsal. We never wrote a song. It was a band on paper. We were hoping to form the band. We had a name, but I can't say it was a real band, no.
Okay.
But that's what the time period when I met Steve Lynch through a buddy of mine.
Okay, interesting.
I thought he was such a superb guitarist that I wanted to do something with him, and so that led to our collaboration in Autograph.
Oh, interesting. Okay. How did? Well, I mean, obviously you knew Randy. You had met Steve. How did the other Steve Isham, and Kenny join the band? How did you guys all meet?
Kenny and I had been in a band called John Doe for about a couple of years. We played a lot of gigs in Hollywood. It was more of a power pop type band. So Kenny and I were good friends, and then that group kind of disintegrated, and that's when I started writing harder music again. So I had a bunch of songs written. A bunch of them are on the first Autograph album. And so I wanted to record those songs and just see what happened. And so it was natural that I would call Kenny to play drums, and he was into it. And of course, Steve Lynch, that's the time period that Lynch and I had met. So Randy was a friend. Randy was very, very busy. We had played together a lot, but he was with Lita Ford at that time.
Oh, that's right.
And I imagine, I was able to entice Randy to come into the studio and play a little bit. And same thing with Steve Isham, who was just a friend, kind of ran in the same circles that we did. So that's how that thing kind of got together.
Gotcha. Interesting. Oh, that's yeah. I'm always kind of curious, like, with bands, like how it all, especially, with Autograph, it was you guys fit so well together. It seemed like, I mean, I would have assumed, but you were all seasoned musicians, of course, so you're all professionals, but it just seemed like you gelled so well that I would have made the assumption you guys grew up together,
No, in fact, we had never even played a gig. Our first gig was opening for Van Halen.
Wow. That's daunting.
We'd had a few rehearsals, but nothing live.
Wow, that's amazing. How large of a crowd was that?
I think it was about 12,000, Jacksonville, Florida Coliseum.
Wow, that's amazing. So that would have been 84, 83, 84?
I believe that was the end. No, that tour started in January 84.
Okay. So the Sign In Please, this was the album had already been released when you.
No, we had no album.
Oh, okay. So just prior. Okay.
So we did that Van Halen tour before we had a record. That was really our beginnings, our first gig. We did 48 shows with them. Got signed by RCA at Madison Square Garden, and then they said, okay, now leave the tour. We could have done the rest of the tour, but they said, get off the tour and start recording. So that's when we went back to Hollywood and started working on Sign In Please.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. I would imagine that was just a whirlwind.
It was. It happened so quick, everything, yeah. I had, that little original demo that we did, I think it had 4 songs that wound up on Sign In Please. I played it for my buddy Andy Johns, and he said, boy, I like these songs, but this demo sounds horrible. And that's when he took us into the record plant and recut it. So we had a great sounding demo at that point.
Wow. And I think some of those demo tracks, or maybe 1 or 2 of those are available now, right? You guys you put those out on, can't remember the name of the album.
The Andy John stuff, I think, is available, yeah. But those original, the first thing that was ever done, I don't know where that is. I think it got lost over the years. I'd like to find it, but that's not available.
Oh, okay. Have you ever considered putting anything like that out, those early demos?
No, not really.
So
I wouldn't want to put out anything that, didn't sound good.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. I have this affinity for. I find demos fascinating. I think it's because I'm not a musician, but I find the evolution of a song fascinating. So I'm always interested in hearing demos of songs, especially like when lyrics are different, or just kind of that raw sound. And yeah, I find it.
Have you ever heard the demos of the first Cars album?
I don't believe so. No.
That's released on a 2 CD set. The demo version and then the album version. There's very, very little difference.
Oh wow.
They were so together. They had it down on the demos even.
Wow, that's cool. That's interesting. I'll have to look at that. I'll have to check that out. Thank you for the recommendation. Yeah, I love the. I will definitely look into that. That's fascinating. Yeah, that's cool. And I know I wish I could remember the quote and who said it. It might have been, I can't remember if it was Gene Simmons or Kevin DuBrow, maybe, of Quiet Riot. I remember because you guys hit the scene hard. You guys came it just kind of. As a fan, as a music fan, it seemed like you guys kind of came out of nowhere, even though you had all been working the bars and the clubs for years. But it felt like it just was this explosion of this new sound and this new band. I remember, again, I can't remember if it was Gene Simmons or Kevin DuBrow saying, wow, these guys are blowing us off the stage.
That's funny. Gene was a fan of the group, and we actually talked to him about producing one of the records, but it never worked out.
Oh, that's too bad. That would have been interesting to see what that would have turned into.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah. So of course, with Sign In Please, the first album, you had the, explosive hit, turn up the radio, which is, I guess at the time I would have been 13 years old, MTV, and that video just sucked me right in. I mean, I was from the second I heard the opening, and I remember that thing that now it's funny because now product placement is so ubiquitous, but then, in 1984, that was not something you saw much of. And I remember thinking at the time, even what's the deal with this mechanical pencil they keep showing?
Very subtle, right?
Yeah. Now, they were probably getting some money from that, so.
Well, yeah, we were lucky to do that collaboration with Papermate, and that allowed us to be able to do a high quality video, which in those days that was really expensive.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So that helped.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's such a fun video. It's a funny video, and I mean, it's the whole opening with Kenny and putting it to erase it, and it was just and the ending's hysterical, and but yeah, I just it was so high energy. It was, that's what just hooked me immediately. Yeah, I mean, I've got it, and the first 3 albums all on vinyl.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I actually had both versions of That's the Stuff, the blue and the red.
Wow.
So,
awesome.
Even though it's one song difference, but it's like, no, I have to have these. This is because they're subtle differences, and I love the album artwork too. It's great. And I think it's unfortunate that you guys broke up when you did. I mean, it was what it was. It was the time, but it just seemed like, I thought musically, and I know it wasn't as successful, but I thought Loud and Clear was like, the best of the first 3 albums. Just musically, I thought it was just it was a more challenging album. I mean, and I love all 3 albums, dearly.
Yeah.
That
I think you're right. I love Loud and Clear. It was definitely an advancement musically, not as raw, but that was when we finally got to work with Andy Johns again after those original demos. It took that long to get it scheduled, but yeah, and you can hear Loud and Clear the songwriting starting to evolve a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and it was strange because it just seemed like you guys were like right at the height. You had done, I think, was it She Never Looked That Good for Me? Wasn't that was in a film, right? Wasn't it?
Yeah, that was in Like Father, Like Son.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Dudley Moore and.
Right, Kirk Cameron.
Yeah, way back. Yeah, it just seemed like, it just felt like everything was right and happening, and then it just kind of ended. Was it just kind of what was happening musically at that time, or were you guys looking at doing different things? What kind of prompted the split?
A lot of it was that kind of 80s music that we were known for was just out. I mean, the grunge stuff had really come in. Nirvana had started really changing things in Pearl Jam, and we were a certain flavor, and that flavor was not in anymore. Now, we could have stuck it out like many bands did, but Bon Jovi's a good example that stuck it out through that period. Yeah. Until their music came back. But, we didn't have enough of a track record with big hits other than Turn Up the Radio to sustain us. So it really wasn't the type of grunge grunge thing that we wanted to get into for the next, however many years. And so the time was just right. We've had a good run. Let's shake hands and walk away.
Right. Well, I know you guys had recorded some things, which was eventually released in late 90s, like Missing Pieces.
Yeah.
So, and at that point, I guess in '89, I guess that it was around '89, I guess, when those recordings were made, and Steven had left the band to pursue other things, and I think Kenny left soon after. Right. And then it just kind of all seemed like you all kind of went different ways. Of course, you did your fantastic solo album, My Attitude, and and it just kind of, I know Steven went and worked with
Vince Neil.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, went with Vince Neil. Things with him. In fact, sorry, funny side story. So it would have been about 1993-ish, I think. I was flying to Boise, Idaho from Salt Lake City, and my flight was delayed for about 2 or 3 hours, and I was 20 years old. So I decided to go to the bar and have a drink, and there was a guy with a black leather jacket and long black hair with a briefcase sitting at the bar, and I sat down next to him, and we started chatting, and it was Steven. And he had just come back from touring with Vince Neil from Japan for AC/DC, and he was flying back to Pocatello to see his parents. Yeah,
he's an Idaho guy.
Yeah, and he told me he did not like to fly. so he would drink. So we proceeded to get really drunk together.
Oh, that's funny.
And it was great, and he was really nice. He was just the sweetest guy. Yeah, I remember there was a Bulls game on, and this was when Michael Jordan was playing, and we were screaming and yelling at the television. And yeah, it was really cool. He was a really nice guy.
Yeah, he was a great guy. He was.
Yeah, I was very saddened when I heard of his passing, and I guess it's been a while ago now, 2008.
Yeah, right.
Cancer. Yeah, just a great musician. But anyway, yeah, sorry, just an interesting story. Just, one of some random things where, you're sitting next to one of your idol, one of your idols, one of your favorite rock stars, and I didn't even realize who he was at first. I had no idea.
Yeah, you never know. You
Yeah.
never know who you're going to see out there.
Yeah, it was wild. I was curious about, sorry to kind of switch gears, but I was curious about, Buzz, the album Buzz, 2003, which was you on Point Music. That was interesting because that was you and it's an autograph album, but it was just you and other musicians, not the original members. How did that come about?
Well, I wanted to make sure that it was clear that was autograph 2.0, not the original. That's why it was labeled that way. And my blurb on there was pretty clear that, this is not the original autograph. This is a new thing. I had actually just finished writing a couple, 3 or 4 songs for the same movie that I did Living the Life for. It was called Metal God at that point, and it turned out to be Rockstar. So my mind was kind of totally back in that 80s zone. And I thought, I'd like to kind of see what would happen if I took that kind of 80s autograph vibe, but use that for kind of the more modern songs I was writing. And at that point in my songwriting career, so I kind of merged the two things together. And you can hear on there that the songs are totally in a kind of a different zone. There's lots of modulations and different parts and different sounding areas, and that's kind of what I was into at that point. So it was just a timing thing, and I had been working a lot with the guys in that band, Matt Logg and Lance Morrison had done tons and tons of sessions for me on different projects. So they were kind of my go-to rhythm section. And it just all kind of came together pretty fast. So I said, okay, I'm going to make sure people know this is not the original autograph, and it's kind of a offshoot thing.
Right. Interesting. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, there's a lot of great stuff on there. Yeah, I was wondering with the timing, if some of those songs, if there was intention for some of those to be on the Rockstar movie, because they would, they fit really well.
Yeah.
They really fit, Can't Stop Rockin', of course, and Party Like We Did, and, things like that. Like those would fit really well into that film.
Yeah, total 80s songs, but kind of with a little bit of a at that point, a little bit of a different picture behind them, sound wise and arrangement wise.
Nice. Yeah, that's really interesting. And then, again, fast forward to now, Straight Up.
Straight Up.
Yes, such a great. Yeah, and it's and kind of a similar in vibe, I guess you could say, where it's to some degree where it's got that 80s sound, but it's modern and rocking and has this I'm very excited about this, the fact that you've recorded a new album. And I can definitely get nourishment from this album for a long time. However, do you have the bug now? Do you feel like will there be a follow-up album to this, do you think?
Who knows? Who knows, man? Anything can happen. I just, we'll see how this all plays out. As you said, it's coming out next month. And hopefully it's the kind of record that people don't listen to and don't try to compare it to Autograph, because it's not Autograph. It's a whole different thing, and hopefully it'll stand on its own. And I wanted it to be, you know, something you can, when you're in the mood to rock, you can put it on and just let it play. I don't think there's any fluff on here. I think every song has some rememberable, you know, hooks in it.
Yeah.
And hopefully it's something that, you know, you just want to let it play and not pick out one song and play that over and over.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm an album guy anyway, but yeah, it's one of those albums. Yeah, I put it on, I play it all the way through, and oftentimes I find myself, you know, once, you know, Start It Up ends, I start right back with Rock Machine and go again. And yeah, it's so fun to listen to. It's just, it's one of those albums. It's just pure joy. It's
awesome.
Pure too. Yeah, I really love it a lot. It's great. Well, I don't want to keep you all day, but I would be remiss if I did not ask this. I was curious, do you see yourself and Steve Lynch ever working together again at some point, someday?
Who knows? You never know what's going to happen in the future. I kind of, you know, as you can see by what's happened from back in the 2000s, I kind of lost touch with all those guys after Autograph.
Right.
And, you know, we're not in a lot of communication with each other. You know, if it's business or something, that's different. But who knows what's going to happen in the future? I've learned to just wait and see how things go. I didn't think I'd be putting out a new solo album, but sometimes things just materialize.
Yeah. And it just seems like like I said before, it's the perfect timing. It's you know, it's at least for me, it's what I needed right now. This is great.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, you know, if I had my dithers, I would say follow-up album for sure. Maybe it's 4.
I don't think that's going to happen, but
yeah. Well, Steve, thank you so very much for chatting with me today. This has been an absolute pleasure and truly, truly an honor to chat with you. You're one of my rock and roll heroes. You know, for those of you listening, go out right now, get on CleopatraRecords.com and pick up Straight Up. Well, actually, it comes out July 19th, so coming up here in a few weeks. But it's available for pre-order right now on CD. Pick it up. You will not be sorry. This album just rocks. It's just a perfect rock metal album. Just excellent stuff. So, Steve,
awesome.
Again, thank you so very much. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Victor. It's been fun talking to you.
Yeah, thank you very much.